Thank you for joining us for part 2 of Alone in the LBL. We did end up finding the alleged massacre site, but the sun was on its way going down, and for some strange reason, I was not excited about going in there after dark alone. It seems like in the LBL it gets dark 30 minutes before the sun goes down. So I went ahead and went back to camp, hung out over there for a while, and got a fresh start in the morning. It was a beautiful morning. So, after looking high and low for the site of the massacre, the killings, whatever you want to call it, yesterday, I found it. I spent a lot of gas and a lot of driving around trying to actually find this location. Some of the guys that did the previous YouTube videos, they did a good job of protecting it, and that's good because we don't want it to end up being one of those sites where people go and leave a bunch of trash and stuff as it's some kind of weird tribute. Never have been able to figure that out. But anyway, heading over there right now. Got up this morning, slept in a little bit late, but it was, when I found it, it was about 30 minutes before dark. I ain't going in there. I ain't going in there and having the sun go down on me. Heck with that. I decided it was time to shut it down and come back and hit it today. So, yeah, I ain't going in there after dark. Call me crazy, but there's limits. So anyway, I'm gonna head over there, and hopefully it doesn't look as dark and foreboding as it did yesterday. Boy, this road does not look like it's been maintenanced in a long time. I'm looking for prints. That's weird. Kind of vague. There's some kind of concrete structure. The part about there being a creek here, looks like there's a dry creek over here and a dry creek directly behind the camera. So we've got that. Signs of armadillos. This road was once rock. Pretty nice road. Could definitely accommodate an RV. Right there. This place had electricity. That's a telephone pole. It's another sign. Might have been RVs here. This looks like the road kept going this way. Or maybe that was where you parked and this was there's your clay pipe. I think that's called Orangeburg. Plumbers used to use it for plumbing back in the day, and apparently it was either it's been moved here or it was for diverting water around. So hard to say. It goes back this way. Here's another parking area. Typical honeycomb of roads like you see in a standard RV park. Here's a concrete slab or something. It's long and skinny. Let's go look at that. Looks like it's L-shaped. Wonder what this was. Maybe this was for the camp host. Did they have camp hosts back then? Well, I don't know. Was this the actual site that the 1980s LBL attack occurred? Probably never know. But the evidence is disappearing all around us. Nature took it back a long time ago. This place is dark and foreboding. Who's telling the truth? Jerry Klein's eyewitness? Roger? There is discrepancies in the stories. But what if they're both telling the truth? What if this happened more than once? This looks like a front porch of something, but the way the landscape drops behind it, whatever it was must have been on poles. These, I don't see anything else here. Okay, right there. You see that? See that U? That what do you call that? A horseshoe bolt? Okay, that is designed to lift it. So I'm guessing that this may, I don't know. This is too weird to be the top of a latrine. It looks like there's another building right over there. Time to go check that out. Okay. This is like a funny little drive-through area, which may have been the RV dump station. That's canine, although it's not very big. you see spots like this, you really, really need to take a moment and check them out. Okay, let's go over here to these structures. I'm guessing these are the pillboxes, bunkers. It looks like there was a cinder block wall, or maybe something to help slow the erosion. Oh. All right. This looks like part of the lid. You can kind of, I don't know, this one doesn't look like it was designed to come apart. The Cryptid Studies Institute guys could be right about this. And, here's a hypothetical for you. In Jerry's story, they tracked this 12-foot Dogman into one of these bunkers, and they killed it. The army did. What if they blew this thing up? That would explain, everything being destroyed. I mean, this is part of the lid. I mean, I don't know. But this, you could imagine that this building had explosive used or thrown on the inside. Hard to say. And where's the rest of the lid? I don't know. It almost looks like this has a false back. The roof goes forward more than the wall. I don't know. I don't know what this thing is. Very cool though. And it is right a little further down from these other strange concrete structures. Maybe the one with the stairs was dragged up the hill from this. I don't know. I'm purely speculating. This was a long time ago. 41 years. They say it came out from the creek. The lake is not that way. You can tell that water used to run through there. And up here is where the RVs would have been parked. Okay, I'm taking a closer look. This is a pit. And there's some type of hole for plumbing. And there's a huge piece of Orangeburg, which is used for plumbing. How many toilets do they need? I don't think all these are toilets. Maybe they were snow cones. Hell, I don't know. Well, that's interesting. Coincidence? I didn't put that there, and I'm not touching it. If these trees could talk. Here's the remains of the road. Maybe the road that Roger ran down. Nature takes everything back. It was hers to begin with. The land between the lakes, also known as the, what was it they called it? The dark and bloody ground. This place's reputation is only superseded by its beauty. I've been down here for 3 days now, kind of wrapping everything up, and this place is amazing. But there are some dark and foreboding corners to this place. You know, for as big as this place is, it's like 170,000 acres. You would understand why there's so much stuff going on. I mean, we've got, people say there's paranormal activity out here. There's all these people coming up missing, dead, people seeing strange things. I've heard from other YouTube channels and stuff like that, that as many as possibly 13 people have passed away at this area due to dogmen. That's a pretty substantial number, and if half of that is accurate, that's something to be concerned about, because dogmen don't normally attack people. There's also rumors of occult type demonic worship that goes on out here. I really don't know that much about it, but I was watching an episode of Hellbent Holler, and they seem to be under the impression that there's something going on, maybe not at the LBL, but in this area. And I think that kind of stuff it happens everywhere. There's always dark forces at work, and there's always people who are misguided that think they'll be able to get ahead in this life by making deals with demons or whatnot. And they think they're gonna not have to pay the price for that later. They will. But there's a lot going on here, and I can kind of start to see why now. So let's talk about some of the stories that are attributed to this area real quick. Okay, kind of like a summary. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the stuff that's rumored to have gone on here. There was a story of a man who was killed in front of his wife. Apparently she came running out of wherever this location's at. I don't know where this was, but it supposedly happened here at the LBL. and she got the attention of some kind of law enforcement officers, and they ended up going back down in there, and they found him. He had been bent in half, like over backwards. They said the back of his heels was touching his head, and he had been stuffed back into the cab of his truck. The woman claimed that her husband was killed by what she called two large monkey men, her words, not mine. According to the story, the responding officers went out there and they saw these two creatures in the woods, and they were growling at them. Now, the story is a little bit deeper than that, but I believe these were Sasquatch. But maybe even the Sasquatch are angry in this place. I don't know. It's very interesting. There was a 1997 incident where two hunters went hunting in the woods somewhere out here, and only one came back out. One of the hunters was found 60 foot up high in a tree, not his tree stand, in a different tree, with his neck broken and his head turned completely around backwards. Apparently the man was a pretty hefty guy, 230 pounds, which would make it pretty unlikely that a mountain lion or something of that nature would carry his body that high up into the trees. I don't know. Oh, yes, and who could forget the 1970 Murray State students encounter that they had out here? That one's kind of famous. Apparently there was a bunch of college students that came down here, and I don't know if their intention was to camp out or just drink beer and do normal college young guy stuff. Who knows what they were up to. But as the story goes, it was a bunch of guys, and there was one of the guys went to go urinate, and he could hear something move around in the brush that spooked him. This was during the daylight hours, and once the sun had set, they could hear this thing circling their camp, making noises, and I guess they turned on their headlights or something, or turned on the flashlight, and the thing stepped out into view so that they could see it. And they described it as being some kind of giant werewolf, wolfman looking creature. And I guess they decided it was time to leave. So they all ran and got in their little VW bus and proceeded to try to take off. And at that point, something reportedly hit the back of the van and started clawing at the back of their van. They eventually got out of there, and they drove to the nearest large town where I guess they were from, or maybe it was back to their college town. I don't know. I don't remember that part of the story that well. And they ended up getting out and looking at the back, and there were these claw marks in the metal on the back of the VW bus. And that was in 1973. I can't help but wonder if there was any photographs ever taken of this VW bus. The damage that was done. Boy, I'd like to see that. That'd be interesting. A lot of people say that the evil that envelops this place goes way back. The Native Americans that were here before, they tried to warn the white settlers when they came in, but as usual, they didn't listen. But the Shawnee people, their story is, because they were originally from here, that there was a dark-hearted medicine man who practiced the dark arts, and he was a shapeshifter, and he would shapeshift into a wolf. And apparently he was so evil that he was killed by his own people. It's kind of a tough deal. Some of the first people in this area were the French trappers, and traders, and they called the creature the, you'll have to forgive me, the loup-garou. Some people call it a rougarou. I think the actual French pronunciation of it's something more similar to loup-garou. I know I butchered it, but hey. Anyway, if there's any Cajuns in the crowd watching, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on my pronunciation. So anyway, yeah, that's supposedly that's the spirit of the creature that's roaming the LBL. So yeah, that's what a way to get started. And last but not least is the family that was murdered by these creatures, maybe plural, back in the 80s. As the story goes, there was a family of 4, and they were in an RV, and they were setting up camp or something, and they got attacked. And by the time it was all said and done, all 4 of them were dead. And there's a lot of things that we don't know. From that point, the story goes different directions. There's multiple stories out there on the internet, multiple versions, and it gets a little foggy, if you know what I mean. Well, first, let's talk about some of the things that most people agree on about the story. Sometime during the 80s, a family of 4 was killed by some type of dogman creature while camping in an RV in the land between the lakes. At first, the local police were involved in working the scene, but at some point, the federal government showed up and took over the investigation. Most everybody is in agreement that the federal government covered that up, and the incident was completely erased, I guess you could say, in an effort to keep the truth from ever coming out. Most of the stories involved, they incorporate the fact that the dogman creature was killed, or at least one of them was killed, which might explain why the government had to get it covered up and have everything wiped like it never happened, because they had a dead body of a dogman, and that's that's pretty tough. The location is kind of a mystery. We're not going to release what we found, the location where we found, primarily out of respect, but I've also seen what happens when people find out where an incident happened. People will go there, they'll start leaving trinkets or offerings, and it gets all weird. I think it should be hard to figure out where the actual location was. So you'll have to forgive me. And a level of respect is due, because it is the location where 4 people's lives ended. So let's look at some of the differences. Now, there's a bunch of differences. There's a bunch of different stories. And the first story that really came out that I'm going to talk about was Jerry Klein's version. He's a YouTuber, You should check him out. And his information came from a retired Kentucky DNR officer named Bob Elkins, who supposedly worked the case. Okay. In Jerry's version of the story, the little girl Connie was found in a tree 60 feet in the air. This version, there was only one Dogman type creature involved, but it was reported being 12 feet tall, which is up in the upper end spectrum of how big these creatures get. In this version, the creature was so large that it had to be hauled out with a military deuce-and-a-half truck. According to the story, it was so large that it filled up the back of the truck. That's where they got their measurement. In this version of the story, there was the army was called in, and I guess the army formed a skirmish line, is what they were told, and they engaged the creature and killed it, reportedly near some type of bunkers. One of the most interesting parts of the story that Mr. Elkins laid on us is that there was DNA evidence recovered from this creature, and there was a screening done. I'm sure back in 1982 it was pretty primitive compared to what is done today, but the rumor is that it did come back saying it was canine in nature. Okay. So those are some of the highlights. Some of the highlights of the differences. Now, Roger's story, there was a fella that came out of the woodwork in 2020 to a YouTube channel called Cryptid Studies Institute. Good channel. I think they have already done this, and they did a really good job, and I suggest you check them out. But this man named Roger reached out to them. He claims that he was there. He was an eyewitness and a survivor. And according to Roger's story, this all happened April 7th, 1982. Roger claims that he was with the family at the time of the attack. He claims that there were actually two Dogmen. Okay, that's a pretty big difference. He claims that he survived the encounter by hiding underneath the RV during the attack, and that's what saved his life. Roger claimed that some of the local law enforcement found one of the dead Dogmen up in a tree. Okay. That's probably because in Roger's story, one of the Dogmen creatures took two different shotgun rounds. Probably, he guessed it was probably birdshot, but one from a 20 gauge and pump, and one from a 410 that he used. According to Roger, the father's name was Levi, the mother's name was Diane, the daughter's name was Connie, and the son's name was Stephen. There was a few nicknames involved, but yeah. Roger and the Cryptid Studies Institute have not released the last name of the family, and that's probably, in my opinion, one of the more controversial parts of it. I can understand being respectful, but at the same time, if their whole family was wiped out, then, you know, where's the need? You know, there's no survivors to be respectful to. I don't know. If the last name was found out, I would say that you could probably go to ancestry.com, plug these people in, find out very quickly if they were real, where they're buried, how old they really were when it all happened, and there would be, you know, a lot of evidence. You might even have a tombstone with an epitaph or something stating that they were murdered. before their time or something. It's hard to say. Let's see. Let's see. According to Roger, they were former Amish folk that had been excommunicated or had left the community. Roger claimed that the dogman that he actually saw with his own eyes was about 6.5 foot tall. It's quite a discrepancy from the 12-foot one. Roger claims that he shot the creature with a .410 shotgun, and Levi, the father, shot the creature with a .28 shotgun. This is the most probable cause for the dogman's death. Okay. Those are some of the big discrepancies in the story. I highly recommend that you listen to Roger's account. I'm usually pretty good at reading people, and he sounds very sincere. At times during his interview, you can hear emotion welling up in him. That kind of stuff is not impossible to fake, but it's pretty tough. And there's some possibilities. I mentioned when I was out there examining the location that maybe both of these stories are right. And what do I mean by that? Well, what if there were two different families? I've heard people table that idea before. I mean, maybe they weren't even at the same location, which would explain for some of the confusion between which location was the real location. Maybe there was two. It doesn't seem that difficult to imagine that there might be two separate families show up in an RV and, you know, have a father and a wife and, you know, 2 kids. I mean, it's possible. Maybe what happened to Roger's friends happened first, and after Roger told them there was 2 of them, perhaps they came up with a contingency plan, knowing that these creatures were out here. Maybe this wasn't the first time they'd had encounters with this, and maybe if Mr. Elkins' story happened at a later date, maybe there was already a plan in place. Maybe that's why everything seemed to happen so fast. Maybe that's why the army was there, you know. Maybe they had a better idea what they were dealing with, and they brought force out. I don't know. There's a lot of questions that are forever going to remain unknown. So I've taken a lot of notes, as you can see. Summary. Who or what was found in the tree? It makes sense that if a dogman was found, federal involvement would be almost instantaneous. I do believe that there was a dead dogman recovered somehow, to some capacity. I would really like to know who the family was and where are they buried. And you know, in Roger's story, there was like $20,000 in cash in that RV. And that would be well over $60,000 in today's money with inflation. That's a sizable amount of money. That alone. I mean, if they had no survivors, I mean, did the local police, did they keep that money? I don't know. It inspires thought. What happened to all that? What happened to the RV? What happened to the little car? Did they get sold at a sheriff's sale? I mean, I don't know. is there really a government cover-up? I don't know. Does the government ever lie to us? I think the more important question is has the government ever told us the truth about anything? Only a fool would expect the government to tell you the truth about anything. So it's not a matter of is there a cover-up, it's to what extent is it covered up. And then there's the whole cemetery thing. People say there's a paranormal link between cemeteries and ghosts, stuff like that. Dogman, Sasquatch have been known to frequent these locations. And man, there's so many cemeteries out here. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. And when I say cemeteries, I'm not talking about the little family plots that were behind the house, which there's a ton of those everywhere. But there's big cemeteries all over the place down here. And if this whole thing of a cemetery being a portal, if there's any substance to it at all, it would make sense that this area would be, I guess you would, I don't know, a cauldron for supernatural stuff. Now, you know me, I'm an evidence guy, and I like to see evidence. And the last thing that I'm going to go to is a portal or something. It's not, I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm just saying that if there's a more logical explanation, I'm going to levitate towards that. So, yeah, there's tons of cemeteries in this area. I looked at a map, and I went to and I punched in cemeteries, and I found 12 full-size cemeteries within a 12-mile radius of this place. I mean, I don't know what the deal is. It's just different in Oklahoma, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, there's a lot of cemeteries in this area. Newbie, Gray, Barnett, Nickel family. I mean, there's a bunch. I was shocked, really, because that's just not normal for where I'm from. And then, did it happen at all? I think it's highly unlikely that it did not happen at all. We've got too many people making reports. You take like Roger, for instance. The number one thing that makes a person think that he's credible is he's remaining anonymous. Okay, so he's really getting nothing out of it, and I think something really happened here. I think there's a reason why they shut down that area. One of the things that I want to know is what year did they actually shut down that little camping area? I would be very interested to know what year that happened. I am not saying that Roger is not telling the truth, and I'm not saying that Mr. Klein's eyewitness was not telling the truth. I don't know. I wasn't there. What I do know is there is some discrepancies in the story, and the easiest way to explain all the discrepancies is that maybe it happened twice, and maybe it happened more than that. Maybe it had happened multiple times. This creature that came out of the woods in '73 and was threatening those Murray State kids. Man, that must have been something to see. Multiple eyewitnesses there. There's something going on in this place, and I don't have all the answers, but I just keep coming up with more and more questions. If you know something about this case, please feel free to reach out to me and hit me up on Facebook Messenger and tell me what you know. You can always remain anonymous. This case is probably one of the biggest dogman cases that's ever happened in this country. And as usual, it just leaves us shrugging our shoulders and scratching our head. Anyway, if you've got any information, reach out to me. I would greatly appreciate it.